Hertzfeldt's new film, Me, and his masterpiece, It's Such a Beautiful Day. This is one of the artists working together. Please give it up for John Hertzfeldt.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for coming. I know it's no small thing to buy tickets and to leave your homes and go to the theater and find a seat and listen to an animator talk. It's very grateful. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm an animator who works alone. It takes a very long time for me to finish anything. My work has been described before as cult films, and I think the new short we're about to show you is maybe destined to become a cult film within the cult. It's very different. I wish you the best of luck with it. It's a musical, sort of. I don't know. The way it was produced was very different, and we can talk about that afterwards. We're going to do a Q&A thing. And then after the short, we're going to show a feature film that I made a great long time ago called It's Such a Beautiful Day. For those of you who haven't already seen It's Such a Beautiful Day, this might be a more exhausting evening than maybe you thought you were signing up for. It's fair to say it's an experimental film in almost every department. It took me about 5 to 6 years to make it. It was originally released as 3 short films, and then in 2012 I edited them together as a feature-length version. But the writing was experimental, the sound design is experimental, the photography is experimental. But at the age that I made this movie, I don't know if I had really seen an experimental film before. I don't know if I was really exposed to one of those. To me, growing up in the Bay Area, in close proximity to Industrial Light and Magic, which was a really big deal as a little kid, knowing that this stuff is being made across the Bay. To me, it's a special effect movie because I really drew on my love of ILM and learning about special effects through their coffee table book and reading about these people. Before I knew what a director does, before I knew what a producer does, it was sort of a gateway drug to humanizing, like making a movie. Like I can understand that this is a matte painting. I can understand that this is a stop motion armature and how that works. So for me, again, it wasn't until I was able to crack open the photography when you'll see it in a second, but it's basically, the whole movie was composited at 35mm animation camera that was built in the 1940s. So when I would expose this corner of the frame, cover it up, rewind the film, expose this corner of the frame, make these little montages, which is, again, just all from learning about maths and ILM when I was 4 years old. And I wanted to work at ILM, and then I wanted to know where the hell this is. So last but not least, and I say this at every screening, it's very easy to worry about the future. It's really easy to worry about stuff that happened in the past. It's really difficult to be present. And I just want to take a second to invite everybody to do whatever you need to do to just really try to be here now. Like, close your eyes if you want, take a deep breath, feel the weight of your body in those chairs. It's right now. We're all together in this beautiful theater, about to watch some movies, and this is something I made called Me. Well, I try to be. I'm very lucky, and I'm very aware of how lucky I am and how unusual it is to be able to be doing this at all. When you work so many luxuries of not having to pitch, not having to raise funding, just come up with an idea for something I can start drawing that weekend. And over the years, I've become more and more just aware of how rare that is. And so when I'm not in production on something, I feel like I'm wasting something, I'm squandering time, and that's probably something I need to work out in therapy. But I was ready for a break. I finished World of Tomorrow 3, which took a couple years, and it was released during the pandemic, and so that kind of bummed me out because I thought it was like, this is like my favorite thing that I've done. And so I was like, well, I'm developing different projects, and I don't know, I'm getting older, so it's like, I don't know how many more of these I can do myself. Like, it's just like, it's getting, I love, I want to collaborate, I want to do bigger things with bigger budgets, with more people, get some other artists in the room. Anyway, I was thinking about this stuff and moping, and I got a call from a band that I really liked, and they said, hey, we've got a new record coming out, do you want to come hang out and listen to some demos and just see if there's a vibe to do something? And that sounded interesting, because I'd never done something totally music-based, and so I met them and listened to the music, and loved them, loved music. Nobody wanted a music video. They just said, just do whatever you want to. Just take as much or as little bonus record as you want, and just do your thing. And so I picked about 25 minutes worth of music, and then went home to Austin to just start writing and working with it and just seeing what I could do with it. And I started thinking about just like my own favorite songs in life, and how some of them I've been hearing and listening to for like 30 years, but I still probably couldn't explain to you what the song is about. Like, you might have a completely different interpretation of what that song is about. And there's something about a great song, unless it's very literal, like I want to hold your hand. There's something that maybe just paints a picture, it reminds you of something or somebody, but you can't really grasp it. It's very ephemeral. It's like a great poem, and that's probably why we listen to these songs over and over. And so I thought, like, what does that look like? How do I get that kind of vibe and picture? And the writing became a little bit more like a fable. And I also like the idea of working with the dialogue. The World of Tomorrow stuff is very, very wordy. It's Such a Beautiful Day was very wordy. And I thought, well, I can kind of make a silent film here. This is very new and interesting. And also, here's this 25 minutes worth of music that's already finished. And so I've got my beats, and I'm going to edit into that, and it's going to set running time, which is also new to me because everything else is how it needs to be. So I was working on this and animating, and I was about a year into it. There were a couple scenes missing, but the skeleton was all there. And then we lost all of our funding. And it was really tricky and difficult, and everyone was pretty bummed out. And I eventually had to make the decision to strip all of the music out. So I found myself in the unusual position of having completed a musical that no longer had any music in it. And I have a very cold-blooded producer side, which sometimes has to come out and help. And so at that point, it was all hands on deck. How do I protect the work? How do I figure this out? And so I spent another year completely reconstructing the film and finding new music. I cut out several minutes. I added other scenes. I'm not telling the story to make you feel sorry for the movie or to give you the impression that it's compromised in any way, because I do think this version is leaner and meaner, and I like it very much. And so today, I feel like it's very much like a movie that was made by accident. Like I was crossing the street and a car hit me and a movie flew out, and I was still trying to understand what was this, because it wasn't a movie I was going to make in the first place, and then when at the end, it all went sideways. It wasn't the movie that I thought it was going to be. So there's something kind of beautiful about that. A movie that couldn't exist in any other way.
Wow. Sharing that journey, and then now taking it around and touring with it.
Yeah, I've only done a couple other, I guess you'd call them commission pieces. I did the thing for The Simpsons, but that was very much development for 15 years, because that's embarrassing. I mean, it's really been stagnating for 15 years. But it's an old idea that Ari really wanted me to resurrect, and so I don't know if that's next. These things take a lot of money and time, and so but it's in his production company's hands, and they're wonderful. He's wonderful, and yeah, that's just one of several bigger projects that I just love to. It's just I just love to get other people in the room to I mean, I'm animating every single frame, and it's just like I'm getting younger, and it's to be able to walk into a room full of talented people and tell them everything they're doing is wrong, and then go to the beach is just like the dream, I think. So my fingers are crossed, and I know when you put Ari's name and my name together, it's like, this is going to be a screwy movie. I don't know if it's horror yet or not. I don't know. So often, until you dive in and get your hands dirty in production, you kind of get the sense of what this actually is.
Mm-hmm. And what I also love about what you're here too is just this anti-capitalism and his anti-corporateness, and how, as you balance like wanting to expand teams and resources and such, to how those conversations for you when you're coming into contact with these people or companies that have completely different goals and others.
Yeah, well, so I was a teenager in the 90s, which, so selling out was like a big deal. I know it's kind of changed now, and it's like, musicians especially are going to do the Pepsi ad or whatever, because it makes so much little now for record sales. But that was the thing, when you were a teen in the 90s and you listened to The Cure and R.E.M. and Nirvana, and it's just like, if any of those guys sold out, it was sort of poison. And so that became, I think, for so many people in my generation, like sort of I don't know, just it's just this anti-corporate thing. It's just the awareness of how it can poison things. And I think especially animation, I just went out of my way to not make advertisements. Like I just was very allergic to that, and I understand that people gotta make a living, and it's nothing to judge. It's just it just takes me so long to make something. My heart has to be in it, and I just cannot spend much time on something I don't care about. But I grew up loving Spielberg. I grew up loving Kubrick and these big movies, like live action stuff like everybody else, and it's a mass media product, obviously. So I don't have any allergy towards, a larger project in that regard. I think the ironic thing is when I was little, well, not little, but I started animating when I was a teenager, and throughout college and after college, nobody would invest in me. I didn't get a single grant. I didn't, there weren't any producers or studio help, and why would there be? It's weird, it's perceived as not profitable. But so I had to pay for everything myself, and now I own everything. And the ironic thing is it's extremely lucrative because I don't have to share anything with anybody. So I've got this body of work, and it's been great. But it's I love to play with others. It's just for most of my life they didn't want to play with me.
Sure. I'll send it to you. But even just at the festivals and Annecy and Sundance, how did that feel when you were first making your work and putting it out in the world?
This is fantastic. The thing is, this movie is, it's such a beautiful day. It's 12 years old. And, time. No, but you're just ahead of me, but I'm gonna, and the only reason that, we're here is because of all of you. No kidding, in a really real sense, because this movie came out as an afterthought. I really bungled the original theatrical release, because it was produced as 3 shorts, as I said. We put it together as a DVD extra. That was my thinking. we have this DVD coming out of all 3 parts, and how cool would it be to have a special feature to watch them seamlessly like a feature film? And so I did that, and my friends said, this is actually pretty good this way, maybe you should re-release it. And I'm very bad at recognizing like what I've done, and especially if it feels old, like I'm ready to move on, I don't look backwards very much. And so we did a very haphazard last minute theatrical release for it originally. But we shot ourselves in the foot because the DVD was already coming out. And so it won these Critics Awards, and I realized, okay, this is actually something that should have taken place. So it's never had a publicist, it's never had any backing whatsoever, and just in the last 12 years, I mean, we're only here tonight because of all of you guys and fans who have shared it through word of mouth. It's 100% word of mouth. And so you were saying about festivals and things, I mean, it's always magical and amazing to someone like me. I'm incredibly grateful that everybody's here at all. And I'm so glad that there's so many people who have discovered this online, because I know there were 30 of you 12 years ago in the theater, and now it's selling out all over the place. To be able to see it in the theater, I'm so happy for everybody who likes this movie. So it never gets old, I guess is the answer to your question. Sundance is cool, and the festivals are great, but I always get the vibe also that those aren't really real people. That's not a bad thing. It's just, when I was a kid, when I was a student, I submitted to literally every film festival I could find an entry form for. I was very cheeky about that because it's like, I spent so long making this movie, I want people to see it. And the movie doesn't exist unless it's been watched by somebody. So I spent as much time, and I tried to reset my brain when I finished the movie, that I had to spend as much time getting it out there as I did making it. So I'd send hundreds of VHS tapes to all these festivals, but I never discriminate between Sundance and Annecy and these, I sent it to Mudflap, Indiana Film Festival, because an audience is a captive audience anywhere, is such a blessing. So, yeah, and last but not least, I get so much from this as well. I mean, there's very selfish reasons for me to release this in theaters, because I get to see you guys, I get to talk to you guys, and working for years in a vacuum can really do some things upstairs, and just reminding myself that there were human beings watching this, and maybe showing up for it, that really recharges my batteries in a huge way.
For sure. Speaking of Aero, one more question before we take it out to the audience. You should get those questions ready. You've done some curating work yourself and looking at other animated works and giving those a platform. What about getting a lens or getting a platform to the next generation of animators or filmmakers and creators gets you excited?
Well, that was, I wish we had more time for that, because 20 years ago I did a thing called the Animation Show with my friend Mike Chidge, and it was before YouTube, and so there was still a window to curate animated shorts around the world to put them in theaters, and it was fun, it was rewarding, and I've met a lot of people who say they're animators because of the Animation Show and things like that. We did several years in theaters. It never made money, and it was always a struggle, but there's so many other people doing stuff like this in other countries, in this country, in many formats, and so much of it belongs in the theater. And if you don't live in Park City, if you don't live in LA, if you are, if you want to see this stuff the way it's meant to be seen, you just can't, unless you go to a film festival, unless you have access. And so it was just sort of important for us to get that stuff in theaters, because those films were shot on 35, and it just seemed like a shame for so many filmmakers and short filmmakers and animators to just be dumping their stuff on YouTube. We've always been sort of beating the drum to, you guys need to monetize your work. If you want to survive, if you want to keep going, if you want to avoid doing ads, you gotta figure that out. So we did our best, and I'd love to do it again someday.
For sure. cloaked or safe with Aero in like your style?
No. I mean, there's certain films that are harder for me to sit through, honestly. I only watch this stuff when I have to remaster it for things like this. Like, It's Such a Beautiful Day, it's pretty good. I get used to only looking for flaws. You get to a point in production where you're only looking for problems to fix, and with so much time, inevitably it's like, I wish I did this better. I wish I had fixed this. I wish I would cut this out completely if I was making it today. But you recognize that it is a document from who you were whenever you made something. I'm tending to write about things I'm interested in, so this is something I was interested in 2005, and this is something I was worried about then, and this is something that was on my mind or something I overheard. So it can feel sometimes like reading your diary from 20 years ago in front of people, but you also recognize the movie's finished, and you're used to that. I think there's a very important test that helps me when I'm trying to wrap something up. Just it's just like, oh, you think it's finished? Why don't you schedule a screening and invite all your friends and strangers to watch it? And then he was like, oh, maybe I'm gonna fix this and this. So, I'm secure in that department. I don't feel naked about that. But there are some things like I'll watch some of It's Such a Beautiful Day and then I'll leave the theater for
Right there. What's up with the pig?
Well, speaking of things I wish I cut out. Timing. Yeah, that whole sequence bugs me. That pig is a rubber puppet. It's a pig puppet. So the movie was shot, like I said, on this old rostrum animation camera, which means you just got a camera floating down on the platform and you stick your artwork. And so generally you're sitting there all night, you put one frame down and you hit a button that takes a single frame, and then you put your next one down, hit a button, take a frame. And while I'm on the subject, if there's anything in the movie that looks kind of live action, like the tree falling or whatever else, it's also all lined up in this old camera. So those sequences were printed out on thousands of 5x7 photograms. And so those were then photographed into the camera like everything else, so they all composited. So anyway, so you can put anything under that lens, which is a beautiful thing because it's just a camera, including pig puppets. I don't know where the pig came from. I remember I told my best friend that it was a crazy pig. I have this crazy pig puppet, and she misheard me, and she thought I said it was Chrissy Pig. And so the name of the pig, Chrissy the pig. I don't know, but yeah, there was also an octopus in that sequence. If you look quickly in the background, I thought it'd be cool to stop motion animate the tentacles of an octopus, and I got it from like the grocery store that was frozen, so it wasn't actually, it was kind of rubbery. That's sad for the octopus. But yeah, there's other stuff in the movie where I would, I'd get like a child's snorkel mask, and I'd stuck that under the lens so it would sort of bend the light in an interesting way. It's very difficult to shoot 35 animation, but there is some cool experiments you can do that because you just use the lens and play with it. Still have, the camera or the pig? The most important was I do have a pig. Yay!
Obviously with the sequence and me, but just with all of the classical music in general.
Yeah, do you hear music and then go from there, vice versa? What is that like?
Usually, it's very much like, so when I'm writing or when I'm sketching or just coming up with shots and ideas and plotting, I'll come across a line or an image or just something that just hits me over the head, and it's like, this has to be in the movie. I can't explain it. It for lack of a better word, I think of it as iconic. Like, this is an iconic image. Of course, like it's like an of course feeling. it's like I'm recognizing something that's always been there. Like I'm remembering something, or like I'm uncovering an artifact that's always been there. Of course, this has to be in the movie, obviously. Sometimes it happens with music. I'll hear a piece in life, and it just whacks me in the head, and of course I have to find a way to put this in the movie. And there are quite a few of those in Such a Beautiful Day. I remember one being the big Rachmaninoff piece. It's a piece that's usually for piano, and it's transcribed for orchestra in this version. I was watching the Winter Olympics a long time ago, and this woman comes out skating to this music, and it's the piece that goes, it's like big, it's like da da da, boom, da, boom, you know, when Bill's having his revelations. So she's skating to this, and it's like she's synced up all of her like flippy dips, whatever they're called, the big moments in the music. Like, so she's gonna jump right, dum, boom, dum, you know, and she comes out, and she's like a medal contender, so it's like a big deal, and she jumps and she falls. And it's the music just keeps going, triumphantly, and she gets up and she does another jump and she falls and she falls and she falls and she's just falling all over the ice. And this becomes the most tragic thing you've ever seen. And that was it. Like, it's like, okay, this music, this triumphant music works with this horrible tragedy that's splashing all over the ice. And so that was like one of those like mental notes, like this has to be in it. Me was very different, because I was starting from scratch, which is a real weird way to make a musical. And for that, I had to go put on my producer hat and seek out stuff. And the central thing I wanted, because the original music was rock songs, just lyrics, I wanted to get away from lyrics, because there's no way I could replace what was already going on and what might sync or not sync. And for whatever reason, what stuck out in my head was drums. I just wanted drums. And I don't know a lot about percussion, but I do know like a drum solo can get really boring after 30 seconds. But my mind went to the JFK soundtrack from 1991. I was a nerd, and I bought every soundtrack that came out. This was a John Williams one. And there's a track on there called Ode to Buckwheat. And it's really cool, slow, melodic drums that don't get old. And at the time I thought, you know, is there anything John Williams can't do? But then I realized this guy named Brett Lewis. And so fast forward 30 years later, I remember this track. Who the heck is Brett Lewis? Was he from the 60s? Is he not? I found he had a bunch of records out. One record in particular is called Drum Sex. I got 2 tracks from Drum Sex for this record. If you look at, for the movie, right? If you look at the record's track listing, there's a lot of double entendres, as well as single entendres. So I got in touch with him, I called him up, got to know him, explained the situation, and he was all for it. I learned he's got like 30 bongos in front of him. Like that's his setup, but they're all tuned to a different note, so he can play them like a keyboard. And so that's where he gets this melodic drum thing going. And he says hi. I told him that I tell every audience that he says hi, and that he is the greatest drummer in the world. He said, Don, don't you dare tell everyone that I'm the greatest drummer in the world. Just call me the drum wizard of Joshua Tree, California. He's 80s now, he's retired, he's teaching drums to kids, but you can look up YouTube clips of him from like the 70s. He's got like the big lapels and like Star Spangled unitard drumming on the Jerry Lewis telephone, which I can't sing with him. So he's incredible, and he really, that one really saved the movie. But it was another thing. As soon as I put on Drum Sex, it was like, these are the tracks. Like this is the intensity I'm looking for.
Yeah, he's about to get a on streaming.
Listen to Drum Sex on your way home. Sounds like I'm not good.
He'll go right there to the phone. Yeah. Where do you travel from?
Hey, I'm glad you're here too. Where do I travel? music, art, people, kindness, you know, I know, you know, it's such a beautiful day. It's been described before as depressing and maybe belongs in Bleak Week. Fairness. But, you know, I can't, I'm not going to work 5-6 years on a project like that if I'm sad. You know, if I'm without, you know, I'm not going to make something that just, let's just depress everybody for, you know, I think of it as a very hopeful film because, I mean, you know, it's very trite maybe, but Bill's not real, but, you know, you are real. And so it's very easy to look at it as a cautionary tale if you choose to, and you know, here's somebody who maybe forgets he's alive until it's a little too late, but you know, there's still time for us, and I think it's not much more complicated than that, you know. And again, when I write, I just tend to write what I'm worried about, and then you know, I make the movie, and I can watch the movie, and I'm not as worried about it anymore, and then I'm worried about something else, and I don't make a movie.
Thank you for sharing. How do you encounter sound, and also what you talk a little bit about just how the music began in me, but how is the process of downloading different?
Well, I love sound design. I probably want to be a sound guy if I wasn't doing anything else. But there's very little sound design in me of all the films because it was music, and one of my rules was in documentary I like the sound design is tell the story through music as clearly as I could. But it's generally because I'm animating and there's no sound from the set, obviously. And so I'll animate, I'll shoot, whatever composite. It's very late in the game that sound usually gets involved, unless it's, you know, there's some little dialogue, you know, things like that. But it's the 11th hour is when I'm able to put in music and sound, typically in like something like It's Such a Beautiful Day. And for me, that's when I feel like, oh, I'm making a movie. Like, oh yeah, this feels like a movie now. Before it was like an animation reel and it's unfinished, but it's not until the sound is there that I just fall in love with it because I think sound and music is over half of